In the first part of our journey through Japan, we visited many extraordinary places. Tokyo, today's capital of the Japanese Empire, where state-of-the-art concrete skyscrapers stand next to traditional and historic temples and wooden shrines. Kamakura, a small town that became Japan's capital city in the 12th century. Nikko, particularly well known for its traditional architecture and religious center that dates back to the 8th century. An excursion by way of rack railway, cable car and boat led to the mountain world of Hakone and Lake Ashi. Nagoya, a city of millions located in the middle of the main island, with a castle and railway station as landmarks of the city. Gifu, with one of the oldest castles in Japan, and cormorant fishing on the river Nagara. Miyajima, with an open-air museum and more than 60 historical buildings from the Meiji period. The unique jewel of Kyoto, the epitome of Japanese culture. And Nara, Japan's first permanent capital, where Buddhism first flourished in the 8th century. People lived here about 10,000 years ago, and the cultural influence of the Asian continent began in the 4th century. Osaka, the third largest city in Japan, was once the country's most important trading center. Toyotomi Hideyoshi had a large castle built around it, from which emerged the first great blossoming of a self-confident bourgeois culture. What can be seen and visited today is a faithful replica of the original fortress. The original castle was destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed again by lightning, and finally burned down. The top floor offers a strategic view. All of Japan was to be ruled from here. But things turned out differently. Tokugawa Ieyasu took over power and made Edo the new capital. And historical research has shown that the later abolition of feudalism had a substantial purpose. It was mainly a question of an alliance between the samurai classes and that of the merchants. At that time, the most important moneylenders resided in Osaka, and most of the capital was managed from here. But back to the castle, where from the top floor there's a good view of both park and moats. On the lower floors of the large main tower, scenes of battles are depicted in miniature. There were always great battles, whose outcomes subsequently furthered the development of the country. Impressive weaponry and armour are also exhibited here. In the 16th century, Toyotomi Hideyoshi had the castle equipped with a new, strengthened fortification and was able to control it during a bloody feud around the shogunate. At the end of the 1990s, the recession resulted in large job losses. The residing steel, textile and chemical industries suffered dramatic losses. The port city of Kobe, located west of Osaka, is still in the world's memory. But the catastrophe of 1995 can no longer be recognized in the Chinese quarter. Here, one can almost forget being in Japan. There's now only a hint of the fact that in the 19th century the Chinese settled in the old port city and ran their businesses here. Of course, the settlers also brought along their kitchen and eating habits. As early as the 8th century, maritime trade with China influenced events in the city. It was not until the 17th century that Japan's compartmentalization brought international trade to a standstill. Even in the modern port, there's nothing of bygone times, and its piers have been moved even further into the seashore. The traces of the devastating earthquake of the 17th of January 1995 have been almost completely erased. A monument commemorates the more than 6,000 victims of the earthquake. On January the 17th, 1995, whole districts in the Harbour area were completely destroyed by the devastating earthquake. Following the disaster, both Meriken Park and the harbour were built in front of an almost utopian skyline. An extensive entertainment area was created here with exhibits from the Maritime Museum. And at the cruiser port, there are trendy shopping malls, restaurants, and a Ferris wheel. The port tower next to the Naval Museum can easily be conquered by elevator. From the viewing platform, there opens up a wide view of the sea, port and city. The harbour became once again the centre of the city, trade and tourism its lifeline. Kobe was born again. From Osaka, the Koya Express leads to the monastery mountain of Koya-san, one of the most important and oldest places of pilgrimage in the country. And travels up the fascinating, mystical mountain. Daimon, the Great Gate, served as the entrance to Mount Koya, defended by the guardian deities. In 816 AD, Kobo Daishi, founder of the Shingon school, had the first monastery built, which was subsequently followed by 124 temple buildings. The 900-meter-high monastery mountain is one of the country's most important and oldest pilgrimage sites. The Danjo Garan complex is rated as one of the first sites and encompasses 20 temples and buildings. Symbolically, a red glowing pagoda stands in the center of a mandala in the form of a lotus. The temple buildings are situated within dense forests. They represent the heyday of 9th century Japanese Buddhism. Here, nature, culture, and spirituality merge uniquely within a fully tranquil setting. The temple and monastery settlement is considered to be the cradle of the Buddhist Shingon school, with a tradition that spans more than 1,200 years. Each year attracts more than 1 million visitors and pilgrims. Since 2004, Koya-san has been a World Cultural Heritage Site. The Kongobu Temple is the main temple of the Shingon school and was founded in 816 AD and rebuilt in its present form in 1863. Aged 24, Kobo Daishi, the founder of the temple, wrote studies on Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. He later became a monk. Kobo Daishi accompanied an imperial legation to China and was introduced to secret teachings by a master of the Chinese Tantra school in Xi'an. Following his return, he became abbot of the Todaiji Temple in Nara and was given permission to build a monastery on Koya-san. The temple also features the largest rock garden in Japan. Access to the interiors is possible, and the monastery kitchen can also be visited. The holy district was home to the universal Dainichi Nyorai. He taught of the cosmic Buddha who combines the worlds of all Buddhas. Ignorance can be turned into wisdom, and ubiquitous meditation helps to attain this superior stage. The Okunoan Cemetery is considered to be the holiest location on Koya-san. It is a mysterious world where there's a strong spiritual atmosphere. Containing around 20,000 graves, the largest cemetery in Japan extends within a mystical forest of ancient cedar trees. A whispering forest that contains ancestral spirits. Curved pathway crosses small bridges. According to the belief of the Shingon doctrine, there are no dead here, only waiting souls. Buddha statues line the path that leads to the Kobo Daishi Mausoleum. Tiny figures with red bibs around their necks are believed to protect the young. In front of the last bridge to the holiest district, a series of Buddha statues is ready to accept offerings and worship. Here, outside the mausoleum, is the area of Kobo Daishi who, according to legend, is seated in eternal meditation. Himeji is located on the southern shore of the Japanese main island of Honshu, 55 kilometers from Kobe. Wide moats and massive stone walls surround the attraction. Japan's largest and most well-preserved fortress. And located on a steep cliff is the mighty White Heron's Castle. With its highly developed fortifications, it was considered to be impregnable, but has never been put to the test. In 1346, there was a castle here that had been built on the site of a temple. A moat surrounded it, and there was a high wall plinth that was built of stone. West of the castle grounds is Meriken Park, which was designed in the spirit of the great tea master and garden architect Kobiri Enshu. The complex consists of 9 gardens. As occurs in many Japanese gardens, here the principle of the borrowed landscape has also been applied. So too, the nearby hills and further buildings were incorporated into the design. A wealth of details such as ponds, a zigzag bridge, stone lanterns, and a tea pavilion. There's a harmonious display of artificial hills, small lakes, rivers, pathways, trees, and lawns. The gardens were hidden behind various walls, and whoever enters seems to be transported to an enchanted world. A time when art and culture influenced diverse manifestations, and people were taught to understand them. Through the Hisi gates, visitors reach the inside of the castle grounds. As with European castles, those in Japan served a military purpose and were built at strategically important locations. The pathway to the main castle leads through further gates, a total of 21, which served as additional defense. In Edo times, much transformation took place. Military bases became luxurious seats of Japan's regional princes. The shogun of West Japan was granted the castle as a fiefdom by the emperor. He made it the center of his power and residence of his clan. The complex comprises 38 buildings, each connected by corridors, and external towers and a main tower. The west courtyard was built as a residential area for Senhime and Taradoki. The princess lived a contented life here. Himeji Castle is one of only 12 remaining feudal castles in Japan. The mystical, legendary creatures on the arched gables were designed to protect against fire. The closer one approaches the main castle, the closer and more protected becomes access to it. From the castle tower, there's a good view of the surroundings. On one floor there's a model of both city and castle. Several further developments were carried out from 1608 to 1644, including the raising of the main tower to a height of 46 meters. It was a typical Japanese castle of the martial 16th century. When the Meiji came to power and the military nobility was abolished, more than 2,000 castles were destroyed, and along with them, the symbol of the old ruling classes. But Himeji Castle managed to survive, has subsequently served as an original backdrop in various films, and has become one of Japan's national treasures. The old trading town of Okayama welcomes you with the Crow Castle, a replica named after its black colour. From the top view, the surrounding river emerges, including the famous Korakuen Garden, one of the 3 most beautiful landscape gardens in Japan. Hills and watercourses are included in the design. At the end of the 17th century, sovereign Ikeda Tsunemasa had a landscape garden planned and built for his own relaxation. Even the precious koi seem to feel comfortable here. On the ponds there are bridges, plus small huts and riverside paths. Although the garden was destroyed several times, it was always rebuilt, true to the original, with the help of old documents. Various wildlife enjoys the peace and seclusion. It is a changing garden in the tradition of Kobori Enshu, who began to combine various garden elements. There's also a rice field where people work, and spiritual stone paths and zigzag bridges lead through and across low water points. The gardens developed over centuries from holy places to magnificent, courtly complexes. And in the extensive landscape gardens, nature reveals all its splendor. And with the arrival of Zen Buddhism, religious austerity entered the gardens. But after the Edo period, the styles became more and more blurred. Walk-in landscape pictures always open up new sights, abandoning strict Japanese garden art form. On a hill above the city of Kurashiki is the Achi Shrine, which dates back to the days of legendary ruler Ojin. The Achi clan settled here, its members having travelled the inland sea from Korea. Small Daruma dolls and horoscope boards fill one of 21 sub-shrines, which were built on a sacred rock. It is likely that this was the first palace of an Achi leader, which, following his death, was turned into a commemorative shrine. At the foot of the Tsurugata Yama is the famous merchant town of the medieval Edo era, which has well survived the ravages of time. A rickshaw adds to the romantic setting. Its small buildings have been perfectly restored and indicate the region's former prosperity. The architectural heritage of the past has been generously preserved. The Momotaro Museum features figures, drawings, and other exhibits which are all associated with the eponymous folktale. The extraordinary collection displays a famous Japanese mannequin, plus various tricks and curiosities. Kurashiki is popular with dog lovers. A canal brings old Japan very much alive, a captivating sight. Kurashiki means warehouse village, and the channels led directly to longhouses to either deliver or collect goods. Rickshaws enliven the waterfront promenade, and small boats navigate the former lifeline of the city. Tiny boats travel along a tranquil canal that passes through the historic district of Biganchiku. It's all a little like having been transported to the set of an historical film. The atmospheric flair of the old town brings the past very much alive. Kurashiki is not only located in the cultural heart of Japan, it demonstrates Japan's ancient culture in today's new age. A wide moat and massive stone walls, these imposing defences protect Matsue Castle. Lord Horio Yoshiharu had this building constructed in 1611. It's one of the last 12 remaining castles in Japan. At the beginning of the 17th century, what was then a fishing village was transformed into a castle town from which the powerful Matsudaira clan controlled the region. Within a mighty tower is exhibited the weaponry of the Matsudaira clan. For protection, samurai were recruited. Honourable mercenaries who were greatly respected and who did not expect to be paid a fixed wage. From the top floor of the castle is a splendid view of the city's superb location between mountains, sea and the Shinji Lagoon. Directly below the castle, but still on the city's hill, the Cone Palace was built in 1903. Planned as accommodation for the visit of the Meiji Emperor. An important part of visiting the castle is to take a boat trip on the canals around the castle's hill. These wide canals were built as moats. In today's history museum that was once a samurai residence, ceremonies such as Japanese shooting are performed in ancient costumes. The audience experiences the fierce sound of the military display. The samurai district can be seen from the castle, and several narrow wooden bridges cross the moat. Dating back to 1779, the Maimai-an tea house is situated on a small hill. It is thought to be one of the oldest and most well-preserved tea houses in Japan. Lafcadio Hearn's house is located next to the museum that was named after him. And the Immaculate Garden inspired Hearn to write his essay, A Japanese Garden. Detached and almost hidden is the Geshoji Temple, which belongs to the Buddhist Jodo sect. The complex became the mausoleum of the Matsue clan, and all 9 of its feudal lords are buried here. A remarkable location which recalls the golden years. Located on the delta of the Otagawa River, the city of Hiroshima has a long history. And for 200 years the local Asano clan resided here. Once a mighty castle town of Mori Terumoto, and also imperial headquarters. He built a castle but had it restored after flooding without the shogun's permission. Next followed 12 generations of the Asano Nagakiriya family. Until 1871, only a few years after the Meiji Revolution, the city remained under Asano control. Remains of Japanese prehistory can also be seen in the castle grounds. These go back to the beginnings of Kofun, a time of close contact with Korea. A temple was also built in the grounds of the castle, which was rebuilt after its destruction. Terumoto built the first fortress with a 5-story main tower. As with European castles, Japanese castles also served military purposes. The interior of the castle is now used as a history museum of samurai culture. Furnishings of that time are also exhibited here. The view from the top floor is overwhelming, and from above there's a splendid view of the moats and Castle Park. The castle grounds were surrounded by a moat bordered by a stone wall. At the beginning of the Edo era, castles were transformed from military bases into luxurious royal residential complexes, along with fine gardens. For that reason, the Shukai-en was built for the feudal lord on the Kayobashi River, an enchanting 4-hectare landscape garden. With ponds, small bridges and pathways leading through the garden. The garden is considered to be a masterpiece of Japanese garden culture based upon a Chinese model of the 8th century. Newlyweds come here to use the garden as a framework for their wedding photos. Pond gardens were once reserved for the nobility. Here they promenaded, admired the official landscape, and Chinese poems were recited. In 1945, the garden was completely destroyed, but was subsequently rebuilt according to classical Chinese design. In Japan, the enthusiasm for gardens has remained with all social classes, and they're consequently treated almost like sanctuaries. Today, Hiroshima is a modern city, crossed by 6 tributaries of the Otagawa River. This castle city was once an important centre of industry, until fate stepped in. On August 6, 1945, at 8:15 in the morning, the first American nuclear bomb in history was dropped over Hiroshima. It exploded 580 meters above the so-called atom bomb dome. An apocalyptic moment that brought indescribable suffering. The skeleton of the former Chamber of Commerce was preserved as a peace memorial and is now the central point of the much-visited Peace Park. No one knew of the American plan. The military wanted to test the effect of the nuclear bomb on an unscathed city. And the result was annihilation. The catastrophe claimed about 200,000 lives and 120,000 victims of the long-term consequences. Peace Park, dedicated to the commemoration of the dropping of the nuclear bomb, is a reminder to the entire world of this terrible event. And the peace bell anyone can ring who believes in a peaceful future. A monument was also erected for Korea's murdered forced laborers. The site includes a peace memorial for children. It is reassuring for the future to see groups of children and young people assemble in front of the various memorials in silent commemoration. Kenzo Tange created the Pond of Peace with its eternal flame. And the cenotaph, a concrete arch that commemorates the early Christian burial objects of the Kofun period. A sign of both grief and strength. At the gates of Hiroshima, a ferry leads to one of three famous Japanese landscapes. It is the holy shrine island of Miyajima, where in the 6th century Mount Misen was worshipped as a sacred location. The red Shintoistic torii is a welcoming sight and stands in the water in front of the Itsukushima Shrine. On the hill above the entrance is a Buddhist sutras library. Adjacent, a 28-meter-high, 5-story pagoda shines out in bright red. Both its wooden construction and the many wood carvings on the beams indicate the age of this wonderful building. In 593 AD, the Itsukushima Shrine was erected, whose buildings were built in pile construction above the water level of the bay. The temple halls appear to float on top of the water at high tide, creating an extraordinary and unique image. Its construction dates back to the sacred status of the island, when ordinary citizens were not permitted to enter, and access was only possible by boat on the upstream torii. Continuing along the shore of the bay, the path leads to the Kiyomori Shrine. And again, the red Otori appears in the water. In the Daigaji temple, a seated medical Buddha is worshipped. The temple itself is dedicated to Benza Iten, the deity of wisdom, music and wealth. Several important meetings took place here, and it was not until 2004 that the Gomado Hall was reconstructed for the first time in 140 years. The Tahoto Pagoda rises behind the treasure house. Built in 1523 and 14.5 meters high, it overlooks the bay of the inland sea. Tokikoji Way leads up to the Daishoin temple complex. In former times, there were residences here for priests and imperial envoys. The temple has always served as the headquarters of the Omuro branch of the Shingon Buddhist school. Here, as administrators, they were responsible for each of the rituals of the Itsukushima Shrine. In the Shaka Nihan Hall, Buddha Shaka enters nirvana horizontally. Emperor Toba declared that this was the place in which to pray for Japan's peace and security. The statues situated along the edge of the path continue to make the complex mysterious and unique. A place of faith, Buddhist sculpture, and tranquility. Japan is a country where extreme contrasts in the smallest space result in an exciting symbiosis. Traditional buildings alternate with megacities. A contrast between tradition and modernity, of nature and artificiality. This land of smiles has opened up to the world.